Hello everyone, it's Mr. Davis here for the final of our summer holiday weekly updates. I just firstly wanted to start by talking about the feedback we've had from parents and families over the last week or so. We had a really successful telephone clinic last week that took place. I think we took upwards of 120 phone calls from families, parents, just asking questions about our return and seeking a little bit of reassurance, which was very positive. On social media this week, we've also had our Mention It Monday, where we were updating things periodically over the course of the day. Again, lots of parental engagement, lots of feedbacks, positive comments, questions. And as we've said many times, no question is a silly question. So what I wanted to do is just pick off a few of the key questions, the frequently asked questions, if you like, that came back as part of those sessions. First one: when is my child back in? I covered this a number of times over the course of the videos, but just for clarity, Year 7s will be in with us next Thursday, the 3rd of September, for 2 hours only for their session with their form tutor. The whole school will then be in on Friday, the 4th of September, where they will be working with their form tutor all day on what we call our drop-down days. So part of that is about preparation for the new year. There's also exploration around some of the ideas of lockdown and some of the issues that we as a community will have faced and how we're going to get through those together, and clearly just looking at some of the PSHE themes and topics to make sure that people feel safe, secure, not just in school but also out of school, in the home, in the community, and really just making sure all of our students have got the tools that they need to keep themselves safe and to thrive in education. One of the other questions is about timings. Are there staggered starts, staggered finishes? So as I've shared previously, we would ask that Year 7s and Year 8s aim to get into school for 8:30, please. Nobody should be on site before 8:30, but if Year 7 and 8 can aim to arrive for then and just take that into account in terms of their planning, that will just help us to manage that flow of students onto the school site. Other year groups, I would be asking Years 9, 10 and 11 just to aim for an arrival as close to 8:40 as possible. Again, it just means that we can manage that entrance onto school site, get people to where they need to be through their appropriate student gates and into their form rooms as smoothly as possible. One of the questions that we've been asked a number of times is about are we changing the ends to our school day? Now, what we've historically always done with Year 7s at the start of term is allowed them to leave 5-10 minutes earlier at the start of the day, at the start of term, just to allow for a little bit of distance between them and the rest of the school as they come out. So that is something that we're going to be doing certainly in the first week after our return, and we will also be doing the same with Year 8s. So our Year 7 and 8 students, certainly for the first week of term, will be leaving and coming off site just a few minutes early, about 5 minutes before the end of the day, just to allow us that little bit of time to manage, again, the flow of students out onto Pound Road and onto the Wolverhampton Road as students are leaving at the end of the day. By having separate entrances or separate gates for each year group, we do think that will help in terms of social distancing, but we'll be reviewing it after that first period of time just to look at how effective that's been and to make sure that it has the desired effect that we'd like. So it's not a significant enough amount of time to make a huge difference. We're not stealing back or clawing back lesson time significantly, because there's already been an increase in the amount of lesson time that everybody's getting as they come back in next year. But it's just 5 minutes to make that flow of students off site at the end of the day, we hope, just a safer and a smoother one. Another question about lunch times. Is my child able to bring their own lunch? Absolutely. We've said that our lunch menu that we'll be offering on offer in the canteen will be very much a limited menu. Sandwiches, a pasta and a chicken salad will be available. So that will be available for people. And what they will do, we have 3 different venues where people can collect their food at lunchtimes if they're purchasing it, if they're not bringing their own. But everybody, once they've got their food, whether it's a packed lunch or their own or bought from the canteen, will make their way to their designated outside space. So each year group will have their own designated outside space where they will eat their food. Now, clearly, If it's a wet lunch arrangement, we will be taking lunch in classrooms and we will have appropriate supervision for that. But one of the most important things for everybody, as far as we're concerned, is about making sure our site is respected. We've put lots of changes in place to make sure that we are COVID compliant and everybody can come in and get on with their learning and focus on their learning. It's important that we make sure our site is respected at all times. Part of that clearly is the litter situation. So if students are eating outside or eating in a classroom, it's crucial that we use the bins provided. The last thing anybody wants as they're walking down a corridor is cheese from the inside of sandwiches strewn all over the floor, because that just makes it unpleasant for everybody. So that's something that we'd ask everybody to take into account as and when they're working through just the normal lunchtime procedures to make sure we respect the site that we all own and we're all responsible for. One of the things that has regularly been in the news, and is something that we've been asked about a number of times, is our approach to face coverings and masks. We know that face coverings and masks have pretty much been normalised across society now, with their use mandatory in shops, on public transport, and in and around other areas of wider community life. Up until this point, the government and the Department for Education have stated that masks and face coverings are not required in schools. We have actually taken a choice on this with the release of some of the most recent World Health Organization information that's been made available. And we can also see in the media that other countries within the United Kingdom are starting to adapt their approach. So we are now taking the approach, and we've shared this via social media, that masks and face coverings may be worn by both staff and by students if it makes them feel more reassured, makes them feel more comfortable in school. It's something that we're happy to support. Now, clearly, that relies on everybody using them appropriately and responsibly. So we're asking everybody to adopt the same approach they would do if they were going into a shop at Merry Hill or into one of their on a local bus journey, where they're expected to wear them and expected to wear them sensitively and appropriately for the good of themselves and everyone else. So we will be taking exactly the same approach. Moving on now, we've got two different strands with things which I've not spoken about previously, but I just wanted to be very clear on. We have always had a very much an open door policy in our school of parents coming in and meeting with staff. Whilst we are still happy to meet with parents, and indeed we will need and want to meet with parents as we return to school in September, I need to tell you that parents will not simply be able to come into school without an appointment. So if you do need to come into school, first thing I would say is it something that can be sorted through a telephone conversation, in which case please call into reception. If reception can't help, they'll divert your call to one of my other colleagues who will help to answer any questions that you might have. But if you need an appointment with a member of staff, it's essential, please, that you do call in and make that appointment with somebody so that we can organise it. Our main reception area is used as a student entrance, and obviously we need to limit the people coming onto our site, just as is happening in all areas of wider life. So just to make that really clear, there will be no meetings between parents and staff that are not pre-organised, where appointments have been set up. So it's essential, please, that you bear that in mind. What we don't want is people coming to try and get into reception and being frustrated or disappointed because they're not allowed in the building, because unfortunately at that point you simply won't be allowed in through our doors, and we don't want that frustration for anybody. Attendance is something, as you will be aware, for our existing families and parents, is something that we always place a high importance on. We want our students in school. We want them in every day. We want them focused on their learning, and that hasn't changed. The government guidance for us as a school is very much about taking the COVID element into consideration, but the expectation, both from the government and from us as a school, is students should now be starting to come back to school full time. Okay, we have set everything up, we believe, in a way that means that students can come back into a safe building. We'd like to think that we've communicated clearly what the expectations are. So unless somebody is actually displaying those coronavirus symptoms, which we're aware of a fever, a high temperature, over 37.8, a dry and persistent cough, loss of sense of smell or taste, unless somebody is actually displaying those, our normal attendance procedures will apply. Where we have absences that are related to coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, we have particular guidance that we have to follow. And what that means is, and it also includes in terms of people returning from holidays and having to quarantine themselves, is that those absences will not count against you. So as a school, we will still be held to account. We will still be working with families in terms of our overall levels of attendance. But it's essential that outside of COVID related absences, everything else is very much business as normal. So our attendance team, our pastoral team, student welfare officers will still be working on attendance on a day-to-day basis. We will still be communicating with you, and we would like to think that you will be as keen as we are for your children to come back into school and to resume their learning as quickly and as smoothly as possible. Before I finish, and I think that over the course of these videos, I think I've given a lot of information to you, and I know that sometimes there are parents that have watched the video and have watched it 2 or 3 times just for everything to sort of really soak in and be able to digest the information. I think it was really important just to share with you just some key bullet points of some of the main changes that we put in place. We want you to feel, and it was a starting point of these videos, was that you feel reassured about the steps that we've taken as a school to ensure the safety of your children when they come back to us, to ensure the safety of our staff, because without our staff, who is going to be teaching and looking after your children when they do come into school, and making sure that as a community we are as ready for a full return as we possibly can be. And I'm hoping that you are reassured that we have done that, and a number of the changes that we put in place have tried to make things as practical and as smooth as possible for people. So things such as having separate gates for every year group as they come into school, being very clear on those arrival times, and obviously, as I've said today, just giving you the overview of our departure times, which will allow you and have allowed you as families over the course of the summer to plan for the return to school and make sure you've got all of obviously your appropriate equipment lists and uniform items in place that you need. The separate zones for each year group to make sure we can preserve the integrity of our bubbles, whether they're class bubbles in Key Stage 3 or year team bubbles in Key Stage 4. The change to our timetables, moving from 5 lessons to 4 lessons, increasing the length of those lessons to reduce the amount of movement. So our staff generally are going to be going to students rather than vice versa in the lower school, to reduce the movement on the corridors. And you may have seen pictures from schools across the UK in the last week or so with very busy corridors. We don't anticipate having that situation at Albury Academy in September. Our use of hand sanitising station, we've got dedicated toilets in each zones, the promotion of appropriate hand washing, something that we've been doing very much since the start of March, and when COVID started to become into all of our conscious lives. Making sure we've got separate lunch arrangements for each year teams. As I've said earlier, 3 different lunch venues and 2 different lunch sittings means that all year groups can go separately to their lunch times, and then obviously move off into their own open spaces, so students can still get access to fresh air, but in a safe and calm way. I've mentioned to you today about our use of masks as something that we are happy to support as long as it's done appropriately and sensibly to make people feel more comfortable and more secure as they return to school. And something which I've spoken about a number of times as well is about the clarity of our expectations. We want people to understand that when we return next week back to school life and back to our building, as a school community, it is very much about looking out for each other, really exercising our care ethos day in, day out, respecting each other's personal space, respecting each other's own anxieties and fears maybe about returning back into school, but above all, making sure that our learning journeys can pick up as quickly as possible and can continue as sharply as possible, to mean that people can make the most possible progress. We think that's what we're all here to do, and as a school we've tried to get everything in place for you as families to let you know what's going on and communicate that as clearly as possible. We didn't want anybody to say, I didn't know, I wasn't aware, and hopefully you are feeling confident about what Albury Academy and the Albury Academy experience will look like from Thursday the 3rd of September onwards. I think all it remains is that, for myself, I know Mr. Shackleton and the rest of the staff at Oldbury Academy are really, really excited to get to have your children in school next week, to be able to reconnect, to rebuild those relationships, to see people face to face, to see how people are, really to start that process of getting back into some kind of normality and picking up where we left off, really, to make sure that your children are as ready, whether they're coming into us in year 7, whether they're returning to us in year 11, that they are as ready for what the future is going to hold for them as they possibly can be. We want really to continue that journey together. We will continue to be talking to you. As you can imagine, we intend to keep reviewing our processes and making sure that everything is as tight and as safe and as secure and as positive as it possibly can be. So we will keep letting you know how we're getting on, and we would ask you to do the same. Please talk to us. Let us know if you've got any concerns once term has started. Let us know if you've got anything that you're particularly happy with, and I hope these videos have been of use to you over the course of the summer to help get you ready for the back end of next week. Take care, everyone. Enjoy these last few hours and days of our summer break, and we can't wait for the start of term. Bye-bye now.